What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the AfterYouth Podcast, the podcast for young adults by young adults. I'm your host, Josh Cave, and today I'm joined by my wife, Molli Kave. Today we're going to talk about and discuss what I wish I knew going into young adulthood. So let's dive in. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today for another topic. Today we're going to jump into the discussion on what we wish we knew before we became young adults. The transition between high school and college or young adulthood can be really challenging. It's one of the most difficult stages of life because you go from being in your parents' house and don't have to worry about bills and things like that to really jumping in full-fledged into adulthood, into bills, into worrying about your future. And I think it's really important that we talk about some of the things that me and Molly, what we wish we knew, but also some other people that we've talked to, what they wish they knew going into that stage of life, going into their 19, 20-year-old days. I want you to picture with me this transition for just a second. I want you to imagine back one day, you're in your senior year of high school. You're hanging out with people you've been around for 4 years. You've got your group of friends. You're basically running the school. You're popular. You're going to youth group every week, and you're hanging out with more friends there. You're hanging out with friends at school. You're having a great time with your family the rest of the time. Life is going really good. You're at the top of your game. You feel good about yourself. You feel good about life. Like, you're excited, you're pumped up, and then everything changes. You go to college, and life is completely different. Or it's getting more and more common that students graduate high school, and then they stay at home and they begin working. Either one of those paths end up having really big challenges. Life is completely different. One moment you're at the top of the world, and the next moment maybe you're at a campus far away from your house, or maybe you're working full time and you're trying to balance life and be an adult in the middle of all of that. Regardless of whatever path you've chosen, everything can be different, and your world can turn into confusing. You can feel lost and feel like you've lost your purpose. All at the same time, you're trying to find your career choice. You're trying to find the right person to marry. Like, everything is on you at one time, and it can really be a daunting time. But I want to tell you, in my life, there's been a lot that I wish I knew going into a young adulthood. There are several times in the last 5 or 6 years that I've sat down and thought what I wish I knew at that time in my life. And one of the biggest ones in particular was whenever I was looking for somebody to marry. It was really challenging for me. Ever since I was a little kid, I looked forward to being married. I wanted to be in that committed relationship with somebody, and that didn't make me desperate, but it made me really desire what was in the future, like so many of us do. So I spent a lot of time in my early young adulthood worrying who I was going to marry. Now, obviously, that turned out pretty well in my favor now, but whenever I was 18, 19, 20, I had more questions than answers. I was really concerned of, how am I going to find somebody? How is this going to work out? Like, God, why can't you find me somebody? Like, God, why is the right person not there? And I spent a lot of time worrying about this issue. And so one thing I would go back and tell myself is to not worry so much. I want to get into that a little bit more in a minute, but I wanted to give you an example out of my own life of something that I wish I knew, something that really I worried way too much about. I stressed so much about, and truthfully, I had very little control over. But like I said in the intro, we've got my wife, Molli Kave, here with us today. And we're going to talk about this issue a little bit. So, Molly, Do you have a story or something in particular in your life, especially during this young adult time, that was especially challenging?
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of touching on the topic of future and marriage, like you said, but for me, it was more the isolation and the loneliness of not even just having anybody there. I'm not talking about like family and friends, but that special person. Just to kind of give a little backstory. At a very young age, I would say I was probably like preteens, maybe 13 or something, and I had told God, okay, I'm not going to deal with dating and stuff unless you're ready for me to start doing that. I don't want I don't want to deal or mess around with anybody that's not the right one. So I told God I would wait, and I knew that he would let me know when it was the right time. So kind of fast forward, and that right time did not come, obviously, for a very long time. So I had going into college and young adulthood, I had never dated anybody. There was a couple of guys that I had texted, never really went anywhere. It kind of fizzled out in high school. But other than that, like there was no serious relationship. And so going into young adulthood and starting this new chapter in life, it's like, man, I should have had that experience already. I've missed out. I've missed that chance. And I felt like, well, who's going to date me now? Like, I'm such a loser now. Like, I've got no experience in anything like this, and I'm just lame. So in that, I guess I kind of struggled with one, the loneliness of it, but also, well, I mean, I guess there were several things I struggled with: the loneliness of it, trusting God that His timing was right, even though I didn't understand why, the right one couldn't have come along like 4 years ago. But and then also the confidence of not dealing with that stigma of, oh, you've never dated anybody, like, what's wrong with you? So I guess that was a few little struggles tied into one.
Yeah, and I think that's really good. A lot of that can be like self image and stuff like that, like struggling with how other people view you and things like that. Most of that, at the end of the day, really isn't important. It really doesn't matter how other people look at us, but a lot of times we stress about that. So obviously, this episode is a little bit different. We're having a more of a discussion in this than what we have in a lot of episodes. So we're going to jump in a little bit further into some discussion and say very specifically the biggest things that we wish we knew. So, the biggest thing I wish I had known going into young adulthood was that you can only control what you can control. I spent so much time worried as a young adult about what I would do with my future, who I would marry, what my career would be, how am I going to get the right job, how am I going to serve God in ministry? All these different things, these worries piled up and they stressed me out and they got me very concerned about what my future was going to look like. And I'll be honest with you, in that very moment where I'm stressed about it, there is nothing I can do about it. There's nobody that by worrying and stressing can make a marriage happen. Like you can't stress enough to the point where you find the right person. You can't worry enough that you end up in the right career. You can't control everything. All you can do is be faithful. And if I could go back and talk to myself at 18 years old, I would remind myself that God is going to take care of your future. It sounds cliche. It sounds like, just a churchy phrase a pastor would put out. But if I could have seen the future, if I could have seen where my life would be now, I would, I wouldn't have any problem trusting God if I knew where I was going to be. But if I had just trusted God in that moment, I would have felt a whole lot better. That stress would have been off of me. That worry would have been off of me. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, but I wanted to tell you that's what I would go back and tell myself. You can only control what you can control. Molly, what's one thing if you could go back and tell yourself, what would you say?
So for me, I think I would have told myself to relax and enjoy that time in my life, um, of being in college and being only responsible for me, myself, and I. And not to say to let loose or anything, but I was so determined to finish college early, get the degree, get the career, and start making the big money. And I didn't take the time to enjoy the little things in life, enjoy my little side job that I had working part time in retail and enjoy going out with friends and just enjoying that young adulthood. I wish I'd taken advantage of the college events, the going and hanging out with my friends, going to the movies, just having fun, basically.
Yeah, just to basically take advantage of the opportunities that are out there in college.
Yeah, definitely. And just to enjoy not having the responsibility of having to be a full-time adult, basically. And I know not everybody has that chance in college to be able to not have to take on that responsibility. And I get that. But for me, I did have that chance and I didn't take it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people do where they don't take advantage of what college is, but whenever you're 18, 19 going into college, like it's hard to realize that there is so much more responsibility out there. And so I think that's an important thing to mention. Like if you're going into college right now, maybe you listened to our episode a couple of weeks ago about dealing with those first 30 days of college. Is just a reminder, like enjoy these next 4 years. Work, do the things you need to do, work hard, but also take time to smell the roses, go have a good time. Don't do anything crazy, but enjoy yourself.
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
So a couple of weeks ago, I went to social media and decided I would phrase this question to whoever would respond. And I actually got quite a few people to respond to this message. And I think it was really interesting because I had some people who were in that young adult range, the 18 to 25, 18 to 30. But I also had some people who were a little bit outside of that range. It is interesting to see the different perspectives. So, what I found in a lot of adults is they gave ideas of finances, of investing. Like several said, yeah, I wish I would have taken time to make decisions, like, sleep on it, things like that, that they made some decisions about money that were quick and trying to make the decision right then and it ended up backfiring. Others said, I wish I knew how to handle money and invest more. If they could go back and tell themselves at 18 or 19 years old, go ahead and invest some money, that it really would have made a difference in their future. And some others said that they wish they were more patient about the future. That, just like I mentioned, just like Molly mentioned, to not get so worried and caught up on what the future holds, but to sit there and enjoy the moment, enjoy the right there and now. But I want to take just a second and look at some of the responses from people just like you. And so I want to put a quick disclaimer here. I've tagged names of some people in this. The people that I say their names, they're ones that posted on a Facebook page, on Instagram. So the people that I'm actually saying their names are people that posted it publicly. Because if you send us a private message, it's going to be private. I'm not going to go and put your name out on everything. But I wanted to give you that quick disclaimer real quick. Frederick, he posted on our Facebook and explained that he wished he understood that his plan had to align with God's plan. Instead of rushing through trying to speed up the process, like I said, trying to worry and make a marriage happen, make the right person come around, or make the right career choices come around. Instead of doing all that, just rest and trust in that God knows what he's doing. Another person said privately that they wish they knew that it's much more important the quality of friend rather than the quantity of friends. And I think that one is really important, that a lot of times going into college, we find it really important that we're really popular. We want to be popular. We want people to be excited to hang out with us. We want our phone buzzing nonstop, our Snapchat to be up in the 100,000s with our Snap score. We want lots of friends. But at the end of the day, it's much more valuable to have a few friends that are really close, a few best friends, rather than a million acquaintances. And finally, this is probably my favorite of the ones that we got. This is from Katie M. She wishes that she knew that everybody's going to go a different path after high school. And basically, she talked about going into this comparison game of, you know, say you didn't go to college, you didn't get a degree, and you decided to go a different path. It's really easy to compare yourself to somebody who did go get a 4-year degree. They're graduating right now. They've got a good job lined up. They're married. They've got all these things worked out. And you look at your life and you're like, man, I just feel so far behind. And she just wanted to show that everybody goes a different path. God has a different path for every single person. And so it's much more important to focus on God and follow his plan for your life rather than comparing yourself to where everybody else is at. And that could go far beyond early young adulthood. You could do that for the rest of your life, stressing and worrying about where other people are at compared to where you're at. Like, oh, they've got a bigger house than I do, or they've got the PS5 and I don't, or they've got 3 new cars in the driveway and I don't. Everybody's got a different path. You focus on God, do what God's called you to do what God puts in front of you, and don't worry about the rest. Let it work itself out. If I could help real quick simplify some of this, the young adults that responded to this seem to be much more focused on not worrying so much. Like, if I could boil it down, Katie Ann's, Frederick's, they both talked about, not worrying so much about where other people are at, not worrying so much about the future. What I echoed, not worrying so much about the future. What seems to be the common theme is to breathe. Don't worry so much. Don't stress so much about what tomorrow holds. Like the scripture says, nobody can add a day to their life by worrying. And so just focus on God, enjoy the journey, and trust what God is doing in your life. And so maybe you're listening today and you're going into young adulthood. You're going into your early 20s. I want to tell you what seems to be the common theme among young adults. What we wish we knew is that if you focus on God and do your best with where you're going, God's going to take care of your life and your future. Don't stress. Don't worry about it. God's going to take care of it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. To keep up with everything we have going on and get updates, follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, the AfterYouth Podcast, or on Instagram and Twitter, @AfterYouthPod. If you enjoy the content we put out, consider giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. This helps us reach more people with what we're trying to do, and we would really appreciate it. Thank you for listening every week, and we will see you again next Friday.